Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Guanzura, and I have the distinct privilege of being your host on this show. We talk about all things that surround wellness at work. And so that means, yes, your career development journey. We talk about skill sets. We talk about how you advocate for yourself in the workplace, promotions, all that fun stuff. But we also talk about how are you managing your mental well-being, right? In that process, you're a whole human after all. How are you tapping into the resources that will help you be a better you every day? We're also talking about financial literacy because of course you want that promotion, but what happens if you get all that money and don't know what to do with it? What happens if life creep gets up to it and you no longer know how to manage your money? And in between, we're also sprinkling in our faith journeys because that resonates with so much of my background as well as many of you. And every single week, while we're talking about those topics, we are also bringing on guests that are talking about their journeys from many different aspects. And one of the things I love about the guest segment of this podcast is we pull the curtain back. You're going to hear the guest's formal title. You're going to hear some things about them. But the whole point is to pull the curtain back of who is the person behind the title. They did not get to where they were overnight. They did not get to build what you see today, as in, boom, it just happened. And all of a sudden they were super successful. Sometimes they're in the midst of that growth journey as well. So I am so excited that people are giving of their time to come onto this show. And what I'll promise you, one, is every single guest that comes on the show is pre-vetted. No one comes on the show that I don't already know in some capacity or form, or at least know them through somebody whose input and ethics I trust. Because one of the opportunities about learning behind the scenes is, one, you may resonate with something that that person says. And if you hit them up after the fact, you want to talk to them, I want them to give you the same energy as they do on the show. And believe you me, not everyone is the way they seem when you see them smiling on the internet. Behind the scenes, they may not be the same. But I guarantee you, when you reach out to our guests, especially today's guest, he's going to give you the same energy. So who is he? He's going to give you more of his bio and introduction, but you know I love a good hype me up. So our guest today is Tabot Arreytambe. He is the CEO and founder of Bitsy Builders. If you are watching on YouTube, you see the merch. The merch looks good. The merch is representing on the show right now. And if you're not on YouTube, please head over to YouTube so you can see him. You can see him and I have this conversation. But a couple of things about Tabot you may not know if you're connected with him on the socials, anything like that. He was a part of a teen gospel hip hop music group that ended up being featured multinationally, all over Africa. I mean, he was on MTV Africa. He was telling me that he went to work in a completely different country and someone recognized him and remembered his songs. So that was a part of his journey. He was also one of four Africans to win the Google Computer Science grant for high schools. And that grant isn't just given to anybody, but I want to highlight the fact that he was one of 4 Africans ever to be selected for that grant. And if you've ever applied for a grant, you know it's not easy, and especially applying for something that's being given by one of the most notable and global names. Not only that, you thought that was something. He was selected out of tens of thousands. Hear me clearly. Tens of thousands of people who were applying for a State Department sponsored fellowship to come to the United States. He was selected, went through every single round, not just going through every single round, but making it to the final selection and being matched with an organization, because it wasn't just enough to be selected. You also had to be matched with an organization that was going to be responsible for you and give you an opportunity once you got to the United States. So that's just a little bit about him, but I want to turn it over to Tabot so we can dive in. I want you to hear more about his story from his words. So Tabot, welcome to the show. I am so grateful you're here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. You have no idea how excited I am to be here today. Just listening to you speak, just listening to you go through that brief segment of my bio. I was just smiling from, molar to molar and ear to ear. But I'm really excited because I know you on a personal level.
Mhm.
At the same time, seeing you in action, I'm just in awe of the work you're doing here. And a huge shout out to the podcast and thanks for having me here today. So really excited, and I just want to thank you for extending the invite to have me here today.
I am truly grateful and I'm matching that same enthusiasm. I really believe there's so much importance in making
Yes.
sure that as you are looking around the work that you're doing, but looking around, what are people in your community doing? What are people in your
Yeah.
network, direct network doing? And when I saw the awesome things you have just continued to do, but also
Yes.
seeing you grow Bitsy Builders into what it
Hmm.
is, seeing
Hmm.
the just excellence behind your work, I was like, I need to have him on here. You know, I've been chasing you down to be a guest on the show. So I'm so glad you're here. So tell us about you. Who is Tabot?
Yes. Thank you very much. So my name is Tabot Arreytambe, originally born in Cameroon, to a family of five. So, four boys, including myself, and one girl. I'm the middle child in the family, so I have two siblings ahead of me, two siblings behind me. And growing up, I was always the geek in the family, because all my other siblings studied the arts. So history, political science, English, sociology and everything. I was the only person in the family who did physics, maths, further maths, like you name it. And
Hmm.
so I always had a knack for building things.
Mm.
You know, I found myself fascinated when I was in Form 2, that was secondary school. I read the Explaining Physics, which was a seminal book for, the physics students at that time. And there were experiments with Newton's first law, and second law, and third laws of motion. And you had this cotton reel, you put a rubber band around it, showing how energy is transformed from one form into another. And as a geek, I would want to carry out these experiments myself. And so I'll take little things here and there, always trying to build things around the house, and just was so fascinated by physics. And
Mm.
so growing up, I knew in my mind I wanted to do physics. I wanted to study physics. So that's how I did it at the O levels, GC O levels, and advanced levels. So
Hmm.
the physics, maths, chemistry, biology, and further maths. So graduated. I was about to get into the university, and my parents wanted me to become a medical doctor. And they
Of course.
insisted because, as African parents, they wanted to have a doctor in the family. And they were so fixated on it. And they said, no, you're going to do medicine or biochemistry or biology, something in the vicinity of, biology, chemistry, biochemistry that would, lead me to the down the path of becoming a medical doctor because they needed that doctor title
Of
since
course.
I couldn't get it to any of my siblings. And so I told them that, you know what? I'm going to do physics, and that's what it's going to be. So when
Mm.
the forms came out, I filled physics, 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 option one, two, and three. My mom said, you're not going to submit that form. She brought a guidance counselor to talk to me. The lady came, we had a session. She said, but well, you see in your grades, you did very well in biology. I had an A grade there. In physics, you had a C. Maybe you should consider doing biology. I told her, nope, I'm going to do physics. I
Yeah.
insisted. So she left. The second guidance counselor came, similar situation, and I told her I was going to do physics. And so, and I told her that, you know what, in addition to that, tell my parents that if they want me to do medicine, no problem. I'll enroll in it, but they shouldn't, I'm not going to go to class. I'll just keep skipping classes and everything until whatever happens. So when she told my parents that, my mom was like, you know what, it's okay. So she brought me, had family meeting still on this situation. And
Mm-hmm.
then she said, so what have you decided to do? I said physics. And she said, when you go there and things don't work out well, don't come back to us. And I said, where there's a will, there's a way. And she told my siblings in a sarcastic tone that let's clap for him. And my mom actually remembers the same story because when she came to visit last year, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about it, and she was the one who was reenacting everything that happened. And so that's how I ended up going to university. I read physics, minor in computer science for my undergrad. And then
Mm-hmm.
for my master's, I did my master's in computer science. I had the opportunity of getting a full scholarship from the African Development Bank
Mm-hmm.
to go to Nigeria. So I studied in Abuja at the African University of Science and Technology, which is a Pan-African university that was established by the former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who was at the World Bank at that time and is now doing amazing things. So I had my master's in computer science, and
Mm-hmm.
then I also got a full scholarship to my PhD in computer science as well. Did that for about 4 years. I'd already passed my oral exam and my the what's it called? I passed the qualifying exam and the
Mm-hmm.
oral exam as well.
Okay.
And I had just about, say, 6 months to put my dissertation together and graduate.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that I was pursuing a dream that I really didn't care about because
Oh.
a PhD was never my thing. It
Mm.
was again trying to satisfy my parents' goals and their desires for me, since they said they
Mm.
wanted a doctor in the family. And so I said, you know what, I'll give them that. But then it was taking everything within me. I wasn't really passionate about it. And so when this opportunity came for me to move to the United States, where I was selected as one of like you mentioned, out of thousands of applications, one of the Africans or the people chosen globally to become a fellow
Mm-hmm.
for the Emerging Global Leaders Initiative Fellowship, also known as Atlas Core.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is not an opportunity I'm going to pass up. And so I
Yeah.
took that opportunity and I came here in 2016 for the first time, was
Mm-hmm.
matched with an organization, worked with them as a software engineer for
Mm-hmm.
about 2 years, and then moved to Mauritius Island, where I worked with the African Leadership University for another 2 years, helped build the university, saw the first graduating class through because it was a startup university, and
Mm.
then moved to Kenya to work with one of our sister organizations, helped build the software engineering program there, which has now grown and scaled, to have several hubs across Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see a number of my students who have graduated from there and have jobs today. And then finally in 2019, I decided to relocate back to the States. And
Mm-hmm.
so I currently now work with Capital One in the credit card division as the product manager for new to credit. And in this role, what we're basically doing is helping those who are moving to the credit ecosystem for the first time. So, for
Mm.
example, recent immigrants, students, and young professionals who have no credit history and are
Mm-hmm.
trying to get that first credit card. And, we're getting alternative data sources in
Mm-hmm.
order to underwrite credit for them. So instead of them, say,
Mm.
getting a $500 credit limit or maybe
Right.
getting a secure card with $300, we could give them about $2,000 or $2,500
Mm-hmm.
based on their bank history, their utility payments, rent payments. So we study
Mm.
all of that, and our business analysts will build the features which will be used to track if this person is going to be able to repay their card, loans,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can underwrite them at a higher level. So that's what my team and I are focused on. And outside of work,
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I started Bitsy Builders, as you can see here in the merch, like you mentioned.
Yes.
And Bitsy Builders is a coding bootcamp for kids between the ages of 7 to 18. And our goal is to be able to provide a platform and an avenue for kids to start early. Like they say,
Mm.
catch them young.
Yes.
Um, I believe that based on the experiences I've had in tech, and product development and everything, if I had a mentor, if I had somebody who introduced these things to me at a very early stage, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have had to navigate the paths that I had to navigate to get here. It would have been a lot more easy and a faster route. And so we're
Yes.
trying to see how we can start them very early, especially in a world where AI is taking everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're trying to do. We ran a summer boot camp this year which was very successful. And now we're ready to scale the program. So that's, my journey to getting here today.
That is an incredible journey. And I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
walking through the various stages, right? And the
Yes.
various movements globally that you had
Yeah.
to do and opportunities that you were able to embrace, right? Because many
Yeah.
times I think sometimes people often think, oh, my opportunity is going to come from this one job and I'm going to stay here forever. And then
Right.
all of my dreams will be realized and actualized from here.
Yes.
And so there's something so powerful about just you sharing that journey that you can move different places, right? Maybe
Yep.
say a contract expires and there's no
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to expand. Sometimes it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
At our recent Wellness at Work conference, there were some international students that were there, and they were talking after the fact about the challenges of being in certain communities because there's not enough of a community to help them understand what's next for them, or they can't apply to a typical company like, a number of their peers can do. So they're just
Yes.
talking about, well, what do I do? What could I look
Mm-hmm.
at? And so I feel like hearing conversations from you and
Mm-hmm.
hearing from people like you who have been able to grab opportunities as you see them, and
Mm-hmm.
all roads ended up leading you back
Yep.
here, right?
Yes.
They ended up leading you back here in with this amazing experience
Exactly.
that you never would have otherwise had. But one of the things I think that really also touches my heart in the core of my work is the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you're also giving you're now directly also involved in the financial education side because
Mm-hmm.
credit cards can either roll you
Oh,
down a
yes.
path. I don't even know what the stats are
Yes.
about
Mm-hmm.
Americans in debt, credit card
Yes.
debt specifically, but it
Yes.
starts with what you do with that 300, 500, 2,000, and what habits you
Yes.
form. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you are in a position to help people make more informed decisions and help them
Mm-hmm.
understand that there are ways to get to the support that they need
Yes.
in a way that usually not every students who are immigrating, their parents a lot of times don't have the money to back them up.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So
Yeah.
true. And I'm glad you actually said that because that was one of the things that motivated me to take on this role
Mm.
because I remembered my own experience as an immigrant to the United States, came in for the first time, had no credit history in the country, and we all know how credit is like the backbone of the financial system here in the
Yes.
United States, right? It's also, like you mentioned, it's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
If used well, could lead to prosperity if you don't use it well, it could also lead to a lifetime of debt and more debt and revolving debt and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. And so that's what we're trying to make sure that, we are underwriting credit in a way that people don't find themselves in holes that they never intended to find themselves in, and
Right.
providing the financial education on how to use credit wisely and
Mm-hmm.
also even giving them access to credit in the first place so that they are not locked out of the financial system.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I came, for example, I was paying my rent
Yeah.
judiciously in Nigeria, taking care of myself. I had a car and all of these things paid off. But all of that history did not translate to the United States. And so
Right.
when I went to apply for a credit card, the best I could get was a secure card from Wells Fargo with $300. So it was my
Mm-hmm.
money I put in there. And I had to show them that I was going to be faithful with $300 so
Right.
that after a number of years, they can say, oh, well done. You're a good and faithful customer. You'll be faithful with the $300 you put
Faithful
in the
with a
card.
few.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now come up higher and we can
Mm-hmm.
give you 1,500 because that's exactly what they gave me.
Yeah.
But then when you think about it, what could I do with $300 actually? In terms of the credit limit, not much,
Right.
not much really. And so it was a
Mm-hmm.
huge struggle using that. And that's why when I had an opportunity to take this role, I remember the experiences I had. And I know that there are
Mm.
people like me who are coming into this country, there are young people who are building their lives as well. And I wanted to do something and add value in that space. So it was a mission aligned role for me. I
Right.
wasn't seeing it was beyond just another job opportunity. For me, I felt like this is something I've been through And I believe that based on my own experiences, I can be able to add value as a product manager in this space.
Right.
And hence why I'm sure, and I can say that when I went through the interview process, I was interviewing with five other people, but
Mm.
I had unique experiences, like you said,
Right.
that they didn't have.
Yep.
And so it shone through the interview experience, and everybody said the exact same thing. When I asked them after that, um, what, why did you guys feel like I was going to be the person for this role? They said, you really spoke to the heart of the issues,
Mm.
based on your personal experiences. And we
Yes.
felt like this was something that it was beyond just a role for you. You were passionate about it, and there was value that you're bringing to the role. And so that
Absolutely.
actually ties in with what you're saying, especially for our young early career professionals,
Mm-hmm.
that when you're looking at opportunities, don't just look at jobs for the money or whatever benefits it may bring. Also
Right.
try to tie that into how am I going to add value in this space based on
Mm-hmm.
unique experiences you've had. And another thing you touched on, that I
Mm-hmm.
also just want to, piggyback on as well, is
Yes.
the non-linear career path that led me here. I
Yes.
remember in 2012, I wrote a blog post when I was still
Mm-hmm.
writing, blog posts was still a thing back then. And so I used to
Yeah.
blog a lot. And
Yeah.
my first blog post was about the non-linear career path,
Mm.
because sometimes, like you said, people always felt like you had to go from here to there in a year and then in the next year or 2 years and so on and so forth. But life is not like that.
No.
I've come to realize that, God will take you through paths that you yourself never expected you're going to go through.
No.
And you may look like you're spiraling out of control and you're wondering what's happening. You're zigzagging, you're going here and going there. And, but it's an ultimate destination. He never said he's promising you that the journey is going to be smooth, but you're going to have a safe landing. That is
Yes.
guaranteed. And so
Yes.
that's been my experience. I've gone through different routes, gone here,
Mm.
gone there, different spaces and different places. But when I look back at the totality of my experiences in life, the experiences that I would never want to trade for anything else. If there was a
Mm.
straight path that would have taken me to where I am today, I would have said, no, give me this meandering path that I had to
Yeah.
take, and with the twists and turns and the spirals and everything, because that's what has made me to be the man that I am today.
Mm.
And I'm glad I actually went through some of the broken roads I had to go through, to get here, because
Yes.
it built capacity,
Mm-hmm.
it built resilience, it built the
Right.
mental toughness for entrepreneurship, because I'm sure you yourself can attest to it. Entrepreneurship is
Ooh.
no joke.
It's
People glamorize entrepreneurship based on what they see in social media and Forbes and TechCrunch. This company has
yes.
raised this amount of money and so on. But every day in the trenches is not what social media is saying. It's a whole
Not even
different ball
close.
game.
It
There are days you're
really is.
dealing with, yeah, you're like, I remember when I started a version of Bitsy Builders in Nigeria, I had
Mm-hmm.
to use my savings to
Yep.
pay the volunteers who were going
Yes.
out with me, because I didn't feel like I could just, have them come and then pay their own transport for themselves. No,
Right.
I took care of that, took care of their lunch, and I
Mm-hmm.
did that for a period of 3 months
Mm-hmm.
while I was, working as a university lecturer. But I was like, for the sake of this thing, I'm going to put
Mm.
in everything I have to make
Yes.
sure that things go very well. So those are the parts that people don't talk about, but it's very important if you want to actually go down this path and be successful. So those are a couple of things
100%.
I wanted to touch on for those who are pursuing the entrepreneurial path, and for those who are pursuing a career path and looking at their next opportunities. Think about mission alignment, and
Mm-hmm.
build that resilience and mental toughness, because entrepreneurship will knock you down in so many ways that you didn't expect, but
Not at
stay the
all.
course.
Yes, it reminds me, everything you're saying right now, it reminds me of Galatians 6:9, which I have right here because I have to
Yes.
be reminded. And it says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for
Yes,
at the
good.
right time you will reap a harvest if you do not give
You
up.
do enough. Exactly.
I have to keep looking
Powerful.
at it like,
Yes.
okay, what's that last part? Okay, don't give up. Don't give up.
Yep. Yes.
But it is so It's so necessary. And I think also entrepreneurship is just another level in
Hmm.
our career paths, in our non-linear career paths, because then now you're
Yes.
choosing your own adventure in some ways, in the way that you do that. So, I love that you're bringing that up and giving that
Yes.
insight. And, just thinking
Yes.
about, your experiences, right? So you've built up to this. You've
Hmm.
just really grown your career. You, are doing mission aligned work through all the
Hmm.
stumbles and fumbles, but they
Oh yeah.
make you who you are, right? Um,
Yes. Yes.
so now I have two questions actually that are leaning more on the reflection side of things. Now, as you're looking
Mm.
at your experiences
Mhm.
and your journey to date, is there something when you look back and say, I could have done that differently?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. Hmm. The first one for me, I would say is when I started um Code to Schools, because Code to
Hmm.
Schools was a precursor to
Hmm.
Bitsy Builders.
Hmm.
I didn't understand systems and processes.
Okay.
And if I'd understood systems and processes, meaning building a team and knowing that you're only one person and you cannot do everything,
Yep.
that's one thing I'd have done differently. Because
Yep.
that's the reason why, even though Code to Schools had a measure of success,
Hmm.
it ended up not being sustainable because it was dependent on me.
Yes.
And the moment I left Nigeria, things were never the same again
Mm.
because I didn't empower the team of volunteers that I had working with me to be able to run with things in my absence. And
Right.
so, as the founder, everything, the success of it was centered around me as a person, social media and everything else. I was the one doing the posting, I was doing this and doing that.
Mm.
And even going to schools, I would, go to schools with the volunteers, but I was leading the charge in negotiations and everything else. And so
Hmm.
never really built a team around me. And so when I had this opportunity to come to the States in 2016, the few folks who I had behind, since they
Hmm.
were not empowered, began to take other opportunities in different places. And
Mm.
finally, I was left with a defunct organization, you
Yeah.
know. And so that was one of the things if I have to do differently, I would actually, make sure I build the systems and the
Hmm.
processes so that things can be able to function in my absence. If you take me out of the picture, this thing
Yes.
should still function as a well-oiled machine
Hmm.
as opposed to something that's dependent on the founder being present. So that's
Yes.
one thing I'll change. For the
Mm.
second one,
Hmm.
I would say that I was a little bit too cautious because
Okay.
when I started hearing in my spirit that it was time for me to move, you know how it is, right? With all
Yeah.
the comfort
Oh, yeah.
zones,
You're
the
like,
comfort
Am I
zone. I'm
hearing
like, no.
correctly? What is going on?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's time to move. Okay. All right.
But
I'm moving.
and so the way
Where? I
mine,
don't know, but I'm
I don't
moving.
know, but I'm moving.
Yeah.
The way mine happened was, so I had a good job, very
Hmm.
amazing job with this university, Nigerian Turkish National University, and I was the assistant head of department. So it was a
Mm.
big deal for me because I was in my
Yeah.
20s. I was the youngest assistant head of department in that organization. I
Wow.
was in my early 20s. There were older folks like in their 50s and 60s, heading departments and
Hmm.
everything. So I was pretty young and I was in a good trajectory. Um, by the time God laid in my spirit for me to start Code to Schools, the
Hmm.
precursor to Bitsy Builders, was around the time when I was in line to be promoted to head of department for the computer science program.
Mm.
And so my boss was also being promoted to become the dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering.
Hmm.
So we had the conversation behind closed doors, and he told me, Mr. Tabot, this is what is about to happen.
Mm.
I've been earmarked to be promoted to head the Faculty of Science and Engineering, and we've worked together so well. I want you to take my spot.
Mm.
It was going to be a corner office with a refrigerator in it, a TV, desk, a window, like
Yes.
everything, all the perks you can think
Yes.
about for a 20-something-year-old. And I was like, yes, this is great. And I considered it, but at the same time, like I said, when I went back and prayed about it, I knew I wasn't supposed to take that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice was strong. It was clear. The instructions were clear. It was time for you to move. You've been here.
Mm.
I'd been with the organization for about 6 years by this time.
Mm-hmm.
And God was telling me it was time for me to take you to the next level. And I want you to go and do this thing. But then I
Mm.
kept on asking myself, where are the resources going to come from? Like we all do, you know,
Whew.
where
Yep.
is the money going to come from? Where is the financing going to come from? Where?
Yes.
I'm
Where?
looking around. My savings are not enough. Even if I have to finance or fund this with my savings, what is
Mm-hmm.
going to be left? And so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard move. So I came, wrote my resignation letter, tendered in my resignation letter to my boss and said, you know what? Honestly, I'm leaving to go start this thing.
Mm.
And I'm so sorry, I'm not able to take the opportunity. He was a
Mm.
bit disappointed in me
Of
because he had
course.
this elaborate plan he had laid out. And he was like, well, if you say so, then that's fine.
Right.
About 2 days later, I came back and I said, you know what? I'll take that letter back. Shredded it. Continued working for another 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
After, I still felt like, because I was still doing that and going to schools and speaking to principals and heads of schools and establishing coding clubs, but I wasn't moving at the pace that I was supposed to be moving. And
Mm.
I felt like this was slowing me down because you're teaching and at the same time doing this. So I came back 2 weeks later and said, I'm bringing the letter
Take
back
it back.
again. Take
Yes.
it back. At that point in time, he started laughing. He was like, Mr. Tava, what are we doing here?
Yes.
Okay. So you go spend about a month or maybe take the next 3 months, you
Mm.
know, just figure out what you want to do and come and let me know. But I'm
Mm.
telling you, you don't need to quit your job. Stay with us and continue to build this thing on the side. We
Mm.
have no issue with that. I was like, okay, I'll see.
Okay. Yeah.
So I came and took the letter a second time. So I kept it with me. And then about a week later, I felt like, you know what? This is it. It's a
Yeah.
wrap. I came back to him and said, you know what, sir? This is the final time I'm telling you, if you see me in this office again,
Mm.
then I mean, I don't know what you do, but I'm not going to be back here. And he laughed and said, he told me, I'm going to see you again. I said, no, you're not going to see me
No, you're
again.
not.
And that was it. The
Mm.
moment I left, Nicole, things moved so quickly. It was
Mm.
not up to, because like I said, I was wondering where was the financing going to come from and this and that. It was
Mm-hmm.
not up to about a month or so later that the Google grants came through. So you can imagine if I'd not gone all in to focus on the thing that God had told me to go and do,
Ooh.
I would probably never have had that opportunity for that breakthrough in the financing to come because
Wow.
a couple of months later, I'm now sitting on $15,500
Right.
from the Google grant, and now I organized the largest program in the nation where I brought in 100 teachers from different states,
Mm-hmm.
gave them a stipend, flew in a number of guest speakers, to come and speak at the event. That was how I got to meet Loa Boyeji,
Mm-hmm.
who now runs what's it called? Future Africa,
Mm-hmm.
the Fund for Africa's Future. By then, he was the co-founder of Andela, and before he
Mm.
co-founded Flutterwave. So he was the keynote speaker for the event. So I got connected
Wow.
to a lot of people in the industry
Right.
based on that opportunity and everything. And the event ended up being a huge success. It was on TV in Nigeria because I got interviewed. NTA, Nigerian
Mm.
television authorities came through, and we're able to now launch the Code to Schools program and scale it across the nation. So
Mm.
it actually pays to listen, to the voice of the Holy Spirit, because
Yeah.
that's how I was able to have those things go through. But like I
Wow.
mentioned, like every other person who is facing that point of inflection, like, is this am I actually hearing right? Should I do
Right.
this thing or should I not? Where are the funds going to come from? How am I going to sustain myself during this period? If God has said do it, trust him and
Do
do
it.
it.
Do it.
Do
Do
it.
it. It Deuteronomy 8:18, right? It is God who gives
Yes,
you the ability
exactly.
to create wealth, because
Exactly.
what you just described to me was in that mark of obedience. God is not a
Yes.
genie. He's not going to say,
Mhm.
Tabot, open your door tomorrow and you're going to
Right.
have $1,000. And
Right.
whoever is doing that and telling you that's how God works, it's a different kind of God. It's not the Almighty
Yep.
King of Kings.
Nope.
Just hint, hint, it's not him.
Yes. Yes.
But the fact that you prayed like it
Mm.
depended on God, but
Hmm.
worked like it depended on you.
Mm.
I
I
just heard
love
that
that.
in the Circle Maker. That's
I
not mine.
love that. Yeah.
Shout out to Mark Batterson. Um,
Yes.
but that, and I love that you're saying that because I think it's so timely for me in this
Yes.
season of my business, having come out of an act of obedience and hosted a
Mm.
conference I wanted no part of. I did
Hmm.
not want to host a conference. I would have laughed in June had we had this conversation. July, I might have laughed even harder. August, I would have been hiding. But now it's
Yes.
November 19th and the event has passed and it was a sold out success
Mm. Amazing.
because of obedience. I said, God,
Obedience.
where am I going to find a venue? God, where am
Yes.
I going to find the funds? Who's
Hmm.
even going to attend this conference?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
not only did the people attend, but not only that, the waiting list of people who are saying, "Can you do it again next year?" So that
Wow.
all my people can be there next year. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying?
Exactly. No, I
Because
get
of
it.
obedience, the people
Obedience.
that you met, right? Now those
Yes.
connection points,
Hmm.
or things that I'm like, okay, what I wasn't expecting, what I was expecting from the conference was,
Hmm.
okay, people attend, they have a good time, they learn about wellness at work. What
Hmm.
I was not expecting was people coming and God using that opportunity to confirm things that they'd been praying about.
Mm.
That's not something I could have
Powerful.
fashioned in an agenda.
Absolutely not. Yep.
Where you getting that grant?
Hmm.
Where would you have thought when you're
Right.
thinking about your corner office for
Gonna,
those
yes.
2 weeks, right? With your fully
Right.
stacked fridge, probably an assistant,
Yes.
doing all of these things. This is the job, right? How many
Yes.
people around you were envying that job and thinking,
Oh,
this man
yes.
is a straight up madman
Oh, yes.
for wanting to leave this kind of cushy job. But God was
Yes.
saying, you have gotten the experience you need, right?
Yep.
You have served the purpose you serve. Priscilla
Hmm.
Shire said it in her book. I was listening to a podcast. She has a book called Surrender All. But she was like,
Hmm.
my prayer recently has been, God, help me to embrace and hold on to the things that you've given me, but not hold
Mm.
on so tightly that when you're ready to shake them up, I can't let them
I
go.
can't let go. Mm. Powerful. I like that.
And
I
that
like
reminds
that.
me of your testimony right now when you're
Yes.
telling me, because I'm like, wow,
Yes. 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 Yes.
you went
And to
and you were
add,
picked. Yes.
exactly, and to add there, um, it did not end there because
Okay.
this happened in 2015.
Hmm.
May 2016 was when I was selected for the Atlas Core Fellowship. So
Wow.
you can imagine. And it was based on the
Wow.
work that I did
Yes.
with the Google grant and how the program was, scaled across Nigeria and everything. So when I started putting together documents and, the proof of the impact that
Mm,
I have had, all of those things were also considered because so okay, this is somebody who has done something at scale, and
mm.
so it, if given this opportunity, he's going to do even more. And
Yes.
again, it was God saying, "You've been faithful in little. Let me show you, take you to the next place of impact." And just like that, and just like that, and so
Right.
every other thing that happened after that started with me in the place of obedience, of me listening to his voice to say,
Mm,
it's time for you to move. And I went, not knowing where the funding was going to come from,
yeah.
providing, using my cash reserves and
Mm,
savings to pay for the volunteers, their transportation and feeding and everything. And then he now said, okay, I've seen that you've been faithful, provided the money for me to now organize the program, bring the teachers around,
right.
establish the coding clubs. And then Atlas Core came. After Atlas Core came ALU in Mauritius and so on and so forth until
Mm.
now I'm here. So again, it started with that first act.
That first act,
Yes.
you can call that first act, the 2 fish and 5 loaves,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's it. That is
Yes, that's
it.
it.
And what he's been
That is it.
able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you
Abundantly
could
above
think.
all. Yes.
Whew.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, even looking at that, right? The journey and the
hmm
learning, right, is what has helped you shift and pivot and move
Yep.
from what you would do differently and what you are doing differently now.
hmm
So, when we're
hmm
reflecting now on this current season of your life,
hmm
what are you really proud of?
Mm. I would say I'm really proud of the fact that um, God has been able to use me
Mm-hmm.
in the lives of so many young people.
Yeah.
Because if there's something I'm so passionate about is young people, I'm a mentor to so many young people
Mm-hmm.
across the globe. At my son's birthday that we celebrated on Saturday,
Yeah.
I had one of my students who was my undergrad student in Nigeria. Nicole,
Wow.
listen to this. Um, he came into the program when I was
Mm-hmm.
like the assistant head of department back then
Mm-hmm.
as an undergrad student, first year computer science. Now he's doing his postdoc in
Wow.
Johns Hopkins University. I didn't even finish my doctorate. I quit the program. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that in the when I was giving my bio. But after 4 years, when I got the opportunity to come to the States, I
Mm-hmm.
actually abandoned the PhD program. But
Yes.
seeing my student who came in, young man, in his teens, now with his family because he came with his wife and his son, seeing him
Wow.
now as a grown man, had his PhD in France in machine learning and data science, and is now doing his postdoc at Johns Hopkins University. For me, that gives me joy. Like I'm
Wow.
excited. Yeah, I feel proud of the fact that
Yes.
God was able to use me as a channel of blessings in
Yes.
his life. And there are many of them like that. He's not the only one. There are many of
Mm.
them like that who are doing amazingly well in different
Mm-hmm.
parts of the world. My students in Mauritius, I see some of them today, Cambridge University, Stanford, MIT,
Mm.
different places, Google, Meta, like different places. And they are also grateful. So I
Mm.
maintain a very close relationship with them. They still reach out to me today to write recommendation letters for them. Like all of them still reach out for me to
Yeah.
help them write reference letters and everything. We talk from time to time. One of my students came to the US and he is in a different state, but he
Mm.
made sure he came to Maryland to see me. He said,
Wow.
"Sir, there's no way I'm going to be in the States and I'll visit you." And he came all the way to the house. We spent time together, and it was an amazing time, And
Mm.
so for me, if there's anything that I feel proud about is the fact that God used me as a channel of blessings to
Amen.
bring light and open up doors and, provide words of wisdom because sometimes it was
Exactly.
not even the fact that okay I was teaching well because I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you could have learned better from YouTube and Coursera and other places.
Right.
There's so much proliferation of material on the internet. There's so much curated content. There are better teachers
Mm-hmm.
who teach Java and object-oriented programming better.
Yes.
So I don't think I would say I was the best teacher ever, but if there
Mm-hmm.
was one thing in my sessions. Like you know what Steve Harvey does on his show, he'll take a segment and I think before the cameras start rolling, he'll talk to
Right.
the people.
Mm-hmm.
I always had such moments with them where I'll just talk about life,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
how to navigate different scenarios in life. And so they always came back to me when they were maybe dealing with relationship situations or trying to, where do I go to next and so on and so
Mm.
forth.
Yeah.
Those were the things they really cared about because, like I said, they could have learned Java somewhere else and the rest.
Of
So I don't
course.
think that was what made a difference for them. It was this other conversations that we had beyond the
Mm.
curriculum that molded them and shaped them to be amazing men and women that they
Mm.
are today. And so for me, if there's one thing I'd say I'll keep on doing until my days on earth are spent, is continue to pour in to the young people, continue to pour in. And that's another reason why I chose to serve in the youth and young adult ministry in my
Mm-hmm.
church today, because
Okay.
I want to continue to spend more time with them, pouring in so that they can become the amazing men and women that God has called them to be. Yeah.
Yeah, that is such a gift. And we need that kingdom influence. We need
Yes.
that in such a positive and having positive mentors, having
hmm
people that work hard and just knowing you
Yep.
and your incredible wife that
Yeah.
you are
Thank you.
people who just give from
Yeah.
just your hearts are exploding. It's a natural thing. for you
Mm-hmm.
both. And I love
Yes.
that God brought you together to
Yeah.
do that as almost a
Yep.
family ministry, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When I think of
Yeah.
like, just your kitchen island is like a place that has
Yeah.
hosted so many
Yes.
beautiful conversations,
Thank you.
the hard ones and the happy
Mm-hmm.
ones and in between,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
pockets of, atmospheric, like influence that you've had at church, at
Yeah.
work, and everything that kingdom influence is so valuable. It's so
Yeah.
wonderful that, that is something that you're looking at as something you're proud of, because those people, God is usually using it. I feel like one of the things
Mm-hmm.
about God, his sense of humor, he's like, I'm using you to maybe plant a seed,
Yes.
but I'm going to water it. Maybe I'm going to
Yeah.
have somebody else like help them, like pull out some weeds. I'll have
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. So he's like, you're just this portion of it. I need you to just do
Yes.
this part. But if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
if you say, God, I'm turning away, God will use somebody else.
Oh,
But
yes.
you take it and you're like, God, but God, it's a privilege
Yes.
to be able
Yes.
to be used by you to
Yep.
pour into just this portion of their life, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just a small portion, God, and you do
Yes.
whatever you want to do for the rest. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
selfless approach that you do is so exemplary. I think of people
Yes.
who are coming up and just need that additional support. But honestly, with
Yep.
the youth, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just young adults, it's
Mm-hmm.
so valuable, because looking at the statistics of people who are just not happy in their lives and their work, people who are
Mm-hmm.
taking their lives, people
Mm-hmm.
who are finding permanent solutions, right, to
Mm-hmm.
temporary issues is
Yes.
alarming and disturbing. So thank you for
Thank
not
you
only
very
showing that as
much.
a proud moment, but the
Yeah.
impact you're doing is
Thank you.
saving lives, not
Thank you.
only just physically, but eternally.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to go down even further,
Mm-hmm.
because I've dwelled at, okay, I've worked with young adults, youth,
Mm,
but I'm now looking at the kids as well.
mm-hmm.
And that age group six to, so we have three programs, um, six to, so sorry, 7 to 9,
Mm-hmm.
10 to 14, and 15 to 18.
Okay.
So they have different programs that they get to do. And when we're running the summer pilot, it was amazing because, like I said, I love spending time with kids.
Yeah.
And in the summer pilot, I think the oldest of the kids was 8 years old. So it's that
Mm,
6 to 8 group. So that first segment.
mm-hmm.
And it was hilarious. Like myself and the my student who I said is doing his postdoc now, he was the
Mm-hmm.
instructor for the program because he
Mm,
was one of my volunteers when we worked in Nigeria with the Code to Schools program. So he
right.
understands everything we're doing and all of that. So we led the program together for the summer pilot, 3 months, spending
Mm-hmm.
time with these amazing kids on Zoom. And
Mm,
it was so funny.
yeah.
They're learning Scratch, how to program using Scratch. And at the same time, the banter and the conversations that were going on between them, it was just so funny. So we'll sit there and we'll laugh until I'm sitting in the background sometimes with my camera off and just really laughing so hard. And
Yeah.
you hear the wisdom that is coming from these little young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, I wish I had such an opportunity in my own time,
Yes.
to have an opportunity, that the opportunities that they're having now, and that's something I want to continue to create, those enabling environments that would foster the
Mm,
creativity and innovation that will be birthed from these kids, to change the world.
yes.
And like you said, it's a life mission for us at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we're doing because of, money and everything. We could get money anyhow. Could take care of us, right? But
100%.
for me, this is our life mission. This is a mission that God has given my wife and I.
Mm,
Um, it's a ministry at this
mm,
point that we're going to take till the ends of the earth. And so when we tell people we are here for the long haul,
yes.
Bitsy Builders is not going anywhere.
Nope.
Um, your kids are going to go through it. Our kids are going to go through it. Our family, friends, everybody, hopefully they get to trust us
Mm-hmm.
with their kids and know that we're going to do the right thing by them
Yes.
to make sure that they're getting the training that they need. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that would create and cement a foundation upon which, like you said, we may be the ones who lay the foundation, and then some other people may come later on and build upon it. But we want to make sure that we are present in their lives and creating that platform
Mm.
where they can get that first introduction to computer programming, and probably artificial intelligence and machine
Yes.
learning and all whatnot. And if, in the future, they may decide to choose careers in data science and machine learning and data engineering or whatever,
Right.
or decide to go do medicine. But here is the catch. Um, Statistics have shown that people who have, say, a background in tech and maybe did medicine are able to marry those two fields together in ways that somebody who was probably only a domain expert in one area would not. And so
Mm.
our goal is not to create computer scientists out of everybody. We
Yeah.
want to just give them the foundations in such a way that in whatever field they find themselves, they'll
Hmm.
be able to still apply the same critical thinking principles and
Yes.
creative problem solving to then say,
Mm.
how do we bring together um, genetics or whatever it is and marry that with, technology to deploy applications in the cloud, that would do this and that, so
Mm.
create innovation by marrying different fields in biology and medicine and telehealth and all whatnot to birth innovations that the world hasn't seen before. So that's actually the goal for it, but it's centered around creative problem solving and critical thinking. Um,
Mm.
that would enable them to do a plethora of things that come afterwards. So we're definitely here for the long haul.
Yes.
And this is history, this is our life mission, and we'll do this until we leave,
I
until our sojourn on earth is done.
I love that. And that's so powerful. And you know what? I have a student who will be ready for you. She turned 7 in April.
Yay!
So
There
when
you
that summer
go.
enrollment opens, you better believe
Yes,
we're going to be
yes,
having
yes,
her
yes.
ready to go because she
Love it, love it,
needs
love it.
that. And you better
Yes,
know we're nurturing the 4-year-old
yes.
to come in. It's just
Yes,
going to be, we're going to be funneling through. But then I
exactly.
can't help but think about all the people you can collaborate in the futures.
Yes.
I think of like the physicians I know,
Yep.
the data engineers that I
Hmm.
know, and like even students that I connect with at different
Yes.
universities who would be like probably really good
Yes.
volunteers for you too. But
Exactly.
folks that would just need just that impact of what you're doing. But I love the
Hmm.
intentionality in which you're doing it.
Thank
So
you.
Talbot, we could talk all day.
I
We
know.
do.
I
We're known for
know.
that. We
I
could do it.
know.
But I want to ask you my last question.
Yes.
Could you tell me in 10 seconds or less,
Hmm.
what does wellness mean to you?
For me, wellness means being spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, and mentally sound.
Mm,
Um, our pastor used to pray this prayer, Pastor Sarah Maku of Family Worship Center in Nigeria. Every
mm,
time I used to hear praying, Lord, thank you for a sound mind.
mm.
And I never understood why she prayed that prayer. But when
Mm-hmm.
you look at what is happening in the world right now, with
Writing that
people
down.
like losing their minds, the pressures and everything is people are collapsing under the pressure, taking medicines, killing themselves, jumping over bridges. I saw the story of the successful guy in Nigeria doing very well, CEO of a company, jumped over his balcony to his death. For me, wellness is being that 360-degree view
Mm.
spiritually. And that's why I started with spiritually,
Yes.
because you need to know God for yourself, my people. If you don't have a relationship with Him,
Mm.
please, you need to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, because it all starts from
Amen.
there. Because
Mm.
once that's right, then sound mind mentally, and then physically, and then emotionally, and then financially. So for me, it's that total package.
Okay, that is powerful. That is really, really powerful. And I just wrote that down. Thank you for a
Yes.
sound mind. Because
Yes.
sometimes you're asking, God, I need a sound mind, right? We have not been
Hmm.
given the spirit of fear,
Yeah.
of love, sound mind. There's a third that I'm
Yep.
forgetting now.
Yep.
But, instead just praising Him and thanking Him for a sound mind, thanking
Mm.
Him like it's already been done. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing that definition
You're
of
welcome.
wellness. And Tabot,
Hmm.
I want people to be able to connect with you. There was actually a
Yeah.
colleague of mine when I shared as you were doing your launch, she was like, "Oh, my
Hmm.
friend was asking about this." And I'm sure
Oh,
there are other people who are going to be asking, how do they
hmm.
connect with Bitsy Builders? How do they
Yes.
connect with you and your journey? I know once I tell, we're actually launching Wellness at Work community conversations, and we want
Nice.
experts to come and talk about their different fields and facilitate a conversation. So
Hmm.
you may or may not be getting a call from me about facilitating this
Yes.
conversation, especially for the international students. I have a group of
Oh.
international students that really need to hear your voice, that really need
Mm.
to hear, and they're master's students. So they've already
Oh,
had a
perfect.
career, and now they're
Hmm.
looking at what does the second round of that, and they need your wisdom.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. Awesome. Always
not
happy
I
to
may or
help.
may not be, I
Hmm.
will call you,
Yes. Yeah.
call on you.
Always happy to help.
So, how do people get connected with you?
Oh, yes. So the first thing is for those who want to learn more about what we do at Bitsy Builders, they can go to bitsybuilders.com. So
Hmm.
Bitsy builders.com.
Okay.
Bitsybuilders.com. They can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Tabot Arreytambe. You just search Tabot Arreytambe. My LinkedIn profile is going to pop up, and you can reach out to me to follow one of our social media channels, or our social media channels. They can go to Instagram. If they search for Bitsy Builders, they'll see that there. TikTok,
Mhm.
same. On LinkedIn as well, we have a LinkedIn page too. They can do that. And then personally, if all of that is still, you can reach out to me by email at tabotarreytambe@gmail.com. So send me. I'm very active in terms of, like, I read my emails every day. So if I see your email, I'm definitely going to be responding to you. So
Mm.
shoot me an email if you want to hear more about what we do. And I'm sure we'll also include these things in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We'll have that connected in the show notes.
Mhm.
Not just in the show notes as well. We're also going to have it connected when the episode drops. I will be
Yes.
tagging Tabit.
Yep.
I almost
Yep.
always launch the episodes on LinkedIn. You'll also see them on
Perfect.
YouTube.
Hmm.
You'll see the episode. Literally, if you type in Wellness with EAC, you're going to see
Yes.
all the various ways, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, listen notes. I mean, there's so many ways to be connected. And if you look at the
Yes.
description, all those links will be there, but I'll also tag on social because Wellness with EAC is finally also coming out of the dark ages and coming into more social media pages
Yay.
because operations and systems, I figured out how to do
Yes.
it
Yes.
much
Yes.
easier. And I also just
Mhm.
hired somebody who's going to help
Nice.
me with that. So, Talbot, I am so grateful. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
just your authenticity. Thank you for just showcasing your faith and just the opportunities ahead. I really appreciate you being a guest on the show today.
Thank you very much. And also, just really again want to say thank you for having me here on Wellness with EAC. And I know that there's a lot in store for you and the organization as a whole,
Mm,
because the world needs this. There are a lot of
yes.
people who are tied to this vision that God has given you, and you may not know to what magnitude or what impact you're going to have. But I just want to encourage you to keep going, stay on course, and you would see what God does through you in the lives of
Amen.
people. So thank you once again.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And thank you all for watching. I am really excited for you to see this episode wherever you're watching. Let us know your thoughts. And until next Wednesday, take care and be well, everyone. Bye.
Bye.